Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Stewart is pathetic. And he has been for a very long time. Now, I know that people say, oh, I really liked Jon Stewart. He was funny. I never found him funny. I never thought he was compelling or charismatic or interesting. No, what he did was he would show a Republican saying something and then make a funny face. It was the lowest IQ, baby brained imbecile bullshit that people apparently were like, he made funny face. No, this guy has never been clever or interesting or really ever willing to go out on a ledge. Now, I know that some people will push back and say, well, what about when he went on Fox News and he called them out, or CNN and called them out? What about when he went on the Colbert show and, called out COVID? He does things in the most just tepid way imaginable. I mean, he did it like he does everything else, making jokes. Maybe the COVID came from the Wuhan lab, which did the wet butter. Like everything he does is just retarded and pathetic. And this is no different. Now he's bitching because CBS decided to can Stephen Colbert, which is one of the easiest decisions I've ever seen in the history of show business. When you are getting paid $16 million for Colbert, oh my God, he should be getting paid like 160,000. He's worthless. But his show was hemorrhaging money. Hemorrhaging money. Now, I want you to take a step back from the politics. I understand I'm not unbiased. I'm conservative. I'm Christian. So I look at somebody like Colbert or somebody like Stewart, and I'm immediately repulsed by their behavior, their attitude, their action, their dishonesty, and all that stuff. But I just want you to imagine that you're a business owner. Your network, CBS, has just had to pay out $16 million to Donald Trump because one of your flagship programs just took an absolute pounding in its reputation because you really wanted Kamala Harris to win. So you doctored, not just edited, you doctored footage of her interview, Kamala Harris's interview, and you put out a fraudulent representation to the American people in a bid to get her elected. $16 million was a steal. You basically got out of jail free. It really should have been $160 million, considering the fact that you attempted to defraud the American people during an election. You deceptively edited that, and Joe Rogan has gone over that. A lot of people have gone over that. They deceptively edited the clip, and so CBS had no case there. But Colbert and retards like Stewart are saying, no, Trump is evil, Trump is bad, Orange Man bad, you should have fought it out to the end. If they had fought it out to the end, they would have had to go through discovery. It would have been a disaster. So again, you're a boss. Your network made a huge mistake. They were called out for it. Your reputation is taking a pounding. And you got off without having to show discovery and with only $16 million. And an employee that is running a show at a massive loss goes on the network and calls you out for settling, which was a win for you. It was a win for your network. You can finally put this behind you. You can try to bury this story finally. But Colbert goes on a show, and the first thing he does is bring it up. The first thing he does is criticize you for settling, which was a godsend to you. And then he starts complaining about your other business deal. Like, oh, well, you're looking to acquire this massive media entity that will absolutely increase the amount of money that you bring in and your overall marketability. A huge deal. A massive deal. 1,000 Stephen Colberts in terms of profit. Well, profit because, Stephen Colbert runs at a huge loss. Like $40 to $50 million loss. But imagine that. You're a boss, you're losing 40 to 50 million on Colbert, and he comes out and he disparages you, talks shit to you, potentially puts you at risk for further defamation if Trump decides to sue you, because not only was the court case settled, but it was pretty clear that you're not really supposed to talk about it. But you do, and you accuse him of, I don't even understand how you can go from Kamala Harris and CBS fucked up to Trump is the bad guy in that situation because you're that deranged. But you do. And then you go out there and you attack him again and you think that, okay, the best thing to do now that I've been fired is to go on a media tour with my friends and basically cry and complain and bitch and moan. And now they're going to go after advertisers. Now they're going to go after corporations. So they had no problem when corporations were running that pride bullshit, that disgusting, degenerate, anti-Christian filth. They had no problem with that. They had no problem with corporations shutting people down and, supporting Black Lives Matter. No, that's all great. But the moment that a corporation is like, we're going to can this guy because he's no longer an asset to our network, then it's a fucking problem? No. Guys, you should continue to pay them $40 to $50 million and lose money. It's unreal.
Last week, as you may have heard, CBS, which happens to have the same parent company as the network this program currently airs on,
boy, wouldn't that be terrible if Jon Stewart got canned too. These people are so pathetic and they're so arrogant. Like their ego. We just got done talking about pirate software and we talked about the 7 deadly sins and the sin of pride. It really is the king of sins. Pride is something else. And ultimately it mentions here that pride is what overcame Lucifer and was the result of him falling from grace. But I mean, you look at this and it says, it is considered the original and worst of the 7 deadly sins, the most demonic on almost every list. Yeah, I can see why. I can absolutely see why. Because you've got this situation that's very clear cut, makes perfect sense. But your ego is so out of control that you want to try to bend reality in order to make it seem like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert are the good guys and CBS is the big bad. Because they don't like being disparaged after putting them in potential legal harm, which is what Colbert did. Trump is incredibly litigious and he's been very successful because all of Trump's cases against these newspapers have had merit. That's why they've settled. They've settled because they don't want to get to discovery. They really don't want to get to discovery. And there is amazing amounts of merit. Because with the CBS 60 Minutes thing, the evidence of that it's not hypothetical, it's not speculative. You can watch the video clip of what they aired versus what was recorded. You can see the difference. That they took answers to other questions and input them in other places and other ways to make her seem more coherent.
Ceremoniously canceled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And yes, in this case, I'll allow it. Now, obviously, I am certainly not the most objective to comment on this matter. Many of you may or may not know, Stephen and I worked together on this very program together from 1999 through 2005. Look how young. Look at that. Haven't changed a bit. And then Stephen began our sister program, The Colbert Report, also on Comedy Central. A show which, in my mind, if I may, a show which, in my mind, remains to this day one of the most astounding accomplishments in satirical television, rendering a fictional character in real time 4 nights a week for 10 years so seamlessly, many viewers believed him to be the boorish, high-status idiot he was portraying.
And it turns out that he is a boorish, high-status idiot. So, kind of makes sense. Yeah. They say, play what you know. And, yeah. He is a buffoon. He is an idiot. Do I need to play the clip of the dancing COVID vaccines? No, Colbert is a fucking imbecile. He's a clown. And maybe that's why he was so effective at that role, is because he is an elite. He is somebody that looks down on the common man. He is somebody that doesn't have any leg to stand on when it comes to morally lecturing people on anything. I mean, just genuinely a terrible and ridiculous person. All the things about Trump that he says, there's no way that any person in good faith believes that. That sort of anti-Trump rhetoric. It's insane. It is absolutely ridiculous and insane. It's crazy. The anti-Trump rhetoric from the late night talk show host has been absolutely insane. And it has destroyed their credibility and reputation, what little credibility and reputation they had. Now, Stewart here is trying to make it seem like you're crazy for noticing that late night talk show hosts have declined the value of the product in such a way that it's almost unspeakable. And in fact, I mentioned this in another video that my parents, the other night, I walked in when I went to visit them, and they were watching Johnny Carson. And Johnny Carson wasn't dancing with a bunch of vaccine needles. He wasn't being a boorish idiot. He wasn't being a Neanderthal pro-Democrat retard. He was just simply interviewing Don Rickles. They were watching the Don Rickles episode. And the chemistry that they had was good, and it was entertaining, and it was fun, and he was the consummate professional. And it was great. It was great. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's really interesting how they used to be back then. And now you've got a bunch of people that are aging out of, well, I mean, just aging out entirely, but they're trying to rehash their youth, and they're doing it in this way that's just absolutely obscene and ridiculous.
They were heady times, my friends. We were 2 pretty good-sized fish in a reasonably small basic cable pond. Both of our shows reached an inflection point in 2015. Stephen chose to challenge himself by seeing if he could succeed the legendary David Letterman in, quite frankly, a much bigger pond than the one he and I had been swimming in. And I quit. I quit. Stephen challenged himself. I passed away. Stephen challenged his abilities in the biggest field you could, and I literally went to a farm upstate. It's true. He did it. I didn't.
He did nothing. He was a bootlicking conformist corporate shill. And now what, he wants to pretend to be the revolutionary? He wants to pretend to be the independent? By the way, keep in mind, I don't even want to play the clip, but you remember when Stewart went on Colbert's show, and Colbert was such a dick writer for corporations and the status quo and COVID and all that other misinformation bullshit, that when Stewart started talking about Wuhan and the lab, Stewart is like, okay, guys, come on. It came from the Wuhan, novel coronavirus lab. And Colbert was trying to stop him. Colbert was trying to stop him, like doing anything he could to like stop him or change the subject. No, this guy didn't do anything. This guy is a coward, a fraud, a freak, and a lunatic. And the reason that he's gone is because he never deserved the position in the first place. And now that he's fired, what, he wants to pretend to be an outsider? No, he is the biggest insider of all. Him and Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Seth Meyers, all of these other freaks and pathetic, fake, plastic loons deserve every bit of what's coming their way, which is unemployment. And they don't have a reputation or career anymore. They're jokes. And all of that is by their own doing.
And if I may, watching Stephen exceed all expectations in the role and become the #1 late night show on network television has been an undeniable great pleasure for me as a viewer and as his friend.
Yeah, it's like saying, well, we are the #1, we are the #1 band on the Titanic. As the ship is sinking, we are #1. Everyone's listening to us. We're getting hundreds of people listening to our violins as the ship sinks. No, late night has it's seen an absolute bloodbath. The ratings have been just beyond kneecap. It's been cut in half like it's Darth Maul. The ratings for late night have gone into the abyss. Nobody cares what these guys have to say. They're a punching bag. They're a joke because they were so radical, so political, so far left, so deranged, so pathetic, so wrong on every issue that they became a meme. They became a joke. Well, he exceeded our wildest expectations. Well, he definitely exceeded our expectations in how quickly you can devolve and lose value and credibility as a personality and as a brand.
And now, Stephen has been canceled for purely financial reasons. And by the way, not just Stephen's show, CBS has canceled the entirety of the Late Show franchise. Gone. Now, I acknowledge, losing money. Late night TV is a struggling financial model. We're all basically operating a Blockbuster kiosk inside of a Tower Records. But when your industry is faced with changes, you don't just call it a day. My God! When CDs stopped selling, they didn't just go, oh, well, music, it's been a good run. The fact that CBS didn't try to save their #1 rated network late night franchise that's been on the air for over 3 decades is part of what's making everybody wonder, was this?
No. No. The only ones that are playing conspiracy theorists are people like you that are too arrogant to realize that the reason that the show has gone tits up is because, like you said, you're on a dying platform, a dying form of media. And here's the thing, Stewart. 200 people to run that sort of embarrassing shit show? Do you know that there are content creators that have a microphone that they bought from Walmart? They've got a computer. They set up everything themselves. They edit it themselves. And it costs them, day-to-day operation. I mean, there's an initial setup cost of maybe $200-300. Not to mention the computer. So let's say you get a computer that's $1,000. Let's say you get a good microphone, $150. Let's say cables $50. All that stuff. Let's say total you're looking at to get a computer and everything. Let's say you're looking at $1,500 to set up. $20 a month for I think it's OBS or Streamlabs. It's like $20 a month for the premium thing. And that's really because I think on one of them to multi-stream you have to pay a fee. But you have like 150. You have $1,500 and that's it. That's invested, and there isn't a reoccurring theme other than maybe a fee for certain things. But that's all it takes for somebody to start a channel and to build it and to grow it and to add momentum and then to be able to start generating more views than Stephen Colbert. Now, I'm, of course, not talking about myself. I'm talking about Tim Pool. Now, I have criticisms for Tim Pool, but the numbers are the numbers. And whatever criticisms I have, I mean, his brand has been able to do amazing things. Now, to be fair, he says that his overall profits are basically eaten up by a $175 million budget, which I think is insane. But I don't know his finances. But you have people like Styx Hexenhammer. You have people like Razor Fist, who are individual content creators that don't have that sort of overhead. I guarantee Razor Fist and Styx Hexenhammer are not making content, with a $1 million price tag. I think that at the end of the day, you can look at this and go, there are people that can get better numbers, a better return on investment than putting $40 million into Colbert. If CBS were smart, what I think they should do is they should seek to try to integrate into this new digital form of media. I don't think they can, because everything would be scripted and sanitized with the CBS logo, but maybe trying to create a new logo, a new something, a division that's owned by CBS that does a little bit more edgy content. Does it online, hire some relatively unknown people and promote them and say, this is what we're willing to do. Maybe a more youthful and exuberant group of people than Stephen Colbert. And you could have people on the left and people on the right. I mean, Colbert was so radically far left at the end that it didn't make any sense to try to rehabilitate his reputation. He had done so much damage that I don't think there's anything they could have done. He damaged the show. He damaged himself. He damaged CBS. Like, this guy is an unmitigated disaster, and whether he's your friend or not is completely irrelevant. We're talking business here. Now, I'm talking a little bit of the personal because, I mean, I think the guy is genuinely terrible. I mean, his politics are revolting, and it's insane to watch people go that far anti-Trump that you start rooting against America, spreading blatantly treasonous and misinformed statements because you hate Trump that much. But looking at this situation, I think it becomes clear that he was canceled. He was fired for a reason. Now, we could watch Jon Stewart talk about, well, the reason is because there's a conspiracy theory, that he was hurting their business deal with Trump. Yeah, absolutely, he was hurting their business deal with Trump. They want to purchase a major media entity that will, Paramount will evolve to the next level if they're able to acquire that. And this one fucking loser, this leftist retard, is so Trump deranged that he's willing to put all that at risk while losing money for the company and being a net negative all the way around. And you want to sit there and pretend like the reason that he was fired was because of some conspiracy? I would have fired him in a heartbeat. In fact, if I were CBS, I'd fire Jon Stewart. These guys are not worth anything anymore. Nobody respects them. Nobody listens to them. I know people pretend that they do on the internet, but they don't really. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this video. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.